Likkutei Sichos, Chelek Yud, Vayishlach Yutas Kislev, Se'iv Daled. The last Torah, or one of the last Torahs, that the Maggid of Mezrich, Rabbeinu Reb Dov Ber, the Rebbe Ber, said to his Chavraya Kadisha, to his close students, was on Shabbos Parshas Vayishlach, Tez Zayin Kislev, Tov Kuf Lamed Gimel, 1772, December 1772. Only 3 days later, on Tuesday, Yutas Kislev, Tov Kuf Lamed Gimel, the Holy Maggid would return his great soul to its maker. What was the Torah he told his students? Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim Mamish. Rashi says it was Malachim Mamish. Said the Maggid, yes, the Mamish of the Malachim Yaakov sent to Esav. The Ruchnius of the Malachim remained by Yaakov. The Rebbe asked a few questions on this Torah of the Maggid. The biggest question, the first question was, why wouldn't he send the Ruchnius of the Malachim? That would be more effective. Number two, how could you even separate between the two? Number three, it seems to be contrary to the point Rashi is making, that he actually really sent Malachim, and the Maggid is saying, not really, the real Malach stayed by Yaakov. As a result of which the Rebbe says that we have to understand the Torah of the Maggid a little deeper. What the Maggid means is not that the Malachim were split and dichotomized to some degree. What it means is that even when Yaakov sent all of the Malachim to Esav, their core, their pnimiyus, their neshama remained with Yaakov. In other words, even though they were by Esav, they did not get lost in the experience. They knew that they are shluchim of Yaakov. They're always connected to Yaakov. Why are they there? They're not there because somehow Esav's world is appealing to them. They're there because Yaakov sent them on a mission. So even when they're by Esav, their physicality is by Esav. Their mamish is by Esav. Physicality relative to the world of the Malachim. But their true core, their true essence remains where? By Yaakov. Just like the guf. The guf is a conduit for the soul. The body is completely connected and bottle and subservient to the soul. It's a conduit for the soul. So you say that the fact that they were by Esav, it was a hechitimtze, it was a conduit in order to be able to fulfill the shlichus of Yaakov. Only their mamish was by Esav. According to this, we'll understand that the Maggid is not negating Rashi's words. The Maggid is explaining Rashi's words. The ability for the Malachim to be able to affect Esav, to be able to sublimate him, to be able to accentuate the light that's in him is because their Ruchnius never left Yaakov, because it always remained with Yaakov. That's why they were Malachim Mamish. He sent the Malachim in a way that they were, and they remained real Malachim. Even over there, they were Malachim. They weren't affected, they weren't changed. They remained in their full intensity by Esav. Why? Because they never left Yaakov. Since this Torah was said on the last Shabbos of the Maggid's life, and to his Chavraya Kadisha, it means, the Rebbe says, that this captures something essential of what the Maggid wanted to leave over to the world. It's like a tzavah, like a final will and testament to the Jewish people about Avodas Hashem. What is Avodas Hashem according to the derech of Chassidus, the derech of the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid? Not only for the students right there and then, but for future generations, because the Maggid was the ultimate pedagogue. He was the ultimate teacher. You see what he accomplished. He raised students. Each of them was became a shining star in the Jewish world that created generations and generations of Talmidim, Ovdei Hashem, b'dechilu u'rechimu, with awe and love. Besides him being a student of the Baal Shem Tov, you see what type of pedagogue he was, which means when he was saying something, especially the last Shabbos, The Rebbe says there's a tzavah here. Furthermore, the Vayishlach of Berditchev said, we all ate from one dish. Und the Litvak hat zugechappt the smetana. The Litvak, referring to the Balatanya, the Alter Rebbe, Reb Shneur Zalman, or the Maggid would call him Reb Zalman Yuru. He grabbed the cream, the best part, the choicest part, and the Alter Rebbe was there, because the Alter Rebbe is the one who said over, how do we know this word from the Maggid? It comes from the Balatanya, who said it over at the Shalom Zocher of his son, Reb Chaim Avram, years later, a few decades after the Stalkus of the Maggid. The Balatanya said over this story that he heard, and he was there. So the Rebbe says, obviously there was also a connection and a message for him. And furthermore, the Maggid told the Balatanya that time, whether it was Shabbos or Sunday, right before his passing, could be even Tuesday, that Yutes Kislev is our Yom Hilul, it's our celebration day. It's the Maggid's yahrzeit and the Alter Rebbe's Chag HaGeula. So it seems the Rebbe says that this Torah, which was said right before the Yom Hilula, is also connected to the second Yom Hilula, to the second celebration. Hilula means a wedding, which is the Geula of the Balatanya. Siv Dalet. Yom Geula ze Yutes Kislev hachidush shabayu yafutzu meinesecha chutza. The day of the Geula of the Balatanya, what's the real theme? And what's the real contribution of this day? It's captured in 3 words. There's a pasuk in Mishlei, Yafutzu meinesecha chutza. Your well springs should be disseminated outward. And we all know that this pasuk is a pasuk that was used in a letter that the Baal Shem Tov wrote to his brother-in-law. It's printed in Ben Peiris Yosef in Keser Shem Tov. There's a letter the Baal Shem Tov wrote to his brother-in-law, Reb Gershon Kittiver, that Rosh Hashanah Tov Kuf Zayin, Rosh Hashanah 1746. He had an aliyas neshama. His neshama went up to the higher realms. He went into the chamber of Mashiach. He said, Emasai Kasimar, when are you coming? Mashiach said, L'chsheyafutza meinesecha chutza. Probably you know it from the song, right? Emasai Kasimar, L'chsheyafutza meinesecha chutza. Masai Kasimar, L'chsheyafutzu. When your well springs, when your Torah, when your teachings will be spread out outward. Now you have to understand that in Chabad, these 3 words of Mashiach became a mission statement. You can see it right here. If this is serious, the Baal Shem Tov writes this in a letter, that this is what Mashiach told them, this became an incredible mission statement. Yafutzu meinesecha chutza. That the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, the mayonis, the well springs, we learned about what mayonis are in previous shiurim, in the Maimer Vayach Peru of the Yitzchak Bar Nochal. We learned the Sfas Emes and Vayetze about the wellspring, the Be'er Basada, B'yotcha Af Kedruchi. The Mayanes, the well springs of the Baal Shem Tov, the vivifying waters of the Baal Shem Tov, pulsating, coming from his wellspring, from his Mayan HaMizgaber, should be a futzu, should become accessible to every single Jew, to the entire world. Mashiach said, this is the prerequisite for my coming. Now you'll ask, what's the connection? Stama, it's a zgula. It's not a zgula. Because the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, this is the Torah Hagula. When the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov fills the worlds, it doesn't only fill the world, it fills my own world. Chutzah starts here. Chutzah doesn't just start. Chutzah doesn't only start on Zoom. Chutzah starts here. When that Torah fills the person, he or she is already in a state of Geula, is in a state of a consciousness of Geula. What's Geula? Geula is a consciousness of Einaid Malvadai, of oneness. Molar is Deus Hashem Kamayim Le'amachas. What happened Yutes Kislev? The history of it is well known, but the point is there was a terrible Mesirah. Jews informed on the Alter Rebbe to the Tsarist government. And the accusation was extremely severe. He was being accused of treason. Merida b'malchus. A black wagon comes, a wagon that was reserved for the greatest criminals in the country, and takes him away from his home. He's living in Lyozhne in Belarus after Sichos, Tovkuf Nun Tes. He's brought to the capital, pretty far journey. Brought to the capital, which is, at the time, it's called Petersburg, named after Peter the Great. Yeah. He's thrown into a prison. I visited there. When you go to Petersburg, there's a special prison, a fortress. It's on an island. Like they have in America, Alcatraz, so the criminals shouldn't be able to run away. That's where they put him. They have a special fortress that's on an island. You can't get from there. You can't get to it on the ground. You have to go through water. This was an extra security measure, and that's where they put him. The island is still there. With the fortress, you could see it. And that's where the Alter Rebbe was in prison. And the investigation... Huh? Yes. Nobody can get out. You have to have a boat. Where are you going to get a boat? You're going to hire a boat in prison? Somebody's going to bring you a boat. In other words, even if you ran away, you didn't have where to run to. You jump into the water. I was there. And you can't... Huh? It's a river. It's a big river. He didn't jump into the water. I'm explaining to you where the prison was. It was on an island surrounded by water. He didn't jump into the water. There's a whole story with Kiddush Levana, but it's not for now. He wanted to be Mekadosh the Levana on the boat because he saw the moon. The captain of the captain, the Rav Achayva, didn't want to stop. It's not for now. The investigation was very, very serious. The charges were very serious. You were dealing here with that he was charged not with doing something wrong, but with creating a movement that is undermining the sovereignty of the Tsar and the success of the country, not with personal motivations to overthrow the Tsar and to help Turkey, which was hostile to Russia, make a revolution against Russia. Very serious charges. Of course, in reality, ein lehem shacha, they had no yisoid. It was all distortions of reality. And Tuesday, Yutes Kislev, Tovkuf Nun Tes, the Alter Rebbe was liberated, as he writes in a letter to Rabbi Yitzchak Baditchever and to the Baruchel of Mezhebush, the Rebbe the Baruchel, the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, that it was Tuesday. I was saying Tehillim. I came to Kapitel Nun Hey. I said the Pasuk Pada B'Shalom Nafshi Mikravli Ki B'Rabim Hayu Imadi. He says, before I started the next pasuk, Yatsasi b'shalom me Hashem shalom. I went out in peace from the God of peace. And since that day, Yotes Kislev is celebrated. But here's the question, and this is what the Alter Rebbe and the Rebbes that succeeded the Alter Rebbe would always explain on Yotes Kislev. Nothing happens down here in this world if it doesn't first happen up there in the higher world. The Gemara says, "Ein adam noikef etzba'im al matal and ken machrizn lav mamayla." Right? Even something like stubbing my finger doesn't happen down here if there wasn't an announcement up there. This world, this place, our planet is not in a vacuum. It's part of a huge, infinite, divine picture, and everything is by divine providence. So when there's an accusation against the Balatanya that he wants to overthrow the Tsar, even if it's baseless, and it's coming from hatred or from jealousy or from misguided ideas and calculations that were contrary to reality, that he's endangering Yiddishkeit, etc. But the Ribbono Shel Olam allowed it to happen. And if it happens down here, it's because something happened up there. So the Rabbeim used to explain, the Rebbes used to explain that there was a kitrug. There was a tremendous heavenly opposition to the Balatanya. And the Balatanya then represented in Russia, in Belarus, in Lithuania, he was the representation of the Baal Shem Tov, of the Maggid, of Chassidus. Which is why he wanted to go up to Eretz Yisrael. He didn't want to stay. Reb Mendele Vitebsker in Tovkuf Lamed Zayin, 1777, a few years after the Maggid passed away, there was the first Aliyah of the Chassidim to Eretz Yisrael. They settled in Tveria, the big Aliyah. Then there was the Aliyah of the Talmidim of the Vilna Gaon years later. But this was a tremendous Aliyah. This is before Zionism. A whole community went, and the Balatanya wanted to go. And he went. He went. But on the way, Reb Mendele Vitebsker sent him back. He said that Russia, Belarus, Lithuania needs a manhig, needs a leader. So there was tremendous opposition in heaven for the Hisgalus, for the revelation of Torah Chassidus, of Pnimiyus HaTorah of the Baal Shem Tov. Because there was opposition in heaven, therefore, there was also opposition on earth. It's not that this Tsar knows what's happening in heaven consciously, but subconsciously, there's a flow. If there's something up there that's flawed, there's a distortion, there's something wrong, it's expressed itself down here. Just like we know, for example, in the world of therapy and psychology, yeah? I may be dysfunctional. I may be saying things that are undermining my life, my relationship, my marriage. But what's happening? It doesn't begin with what happened right there and then. It's deep issues that are unresolved in my psyche, maybe from youth, that are just coming out from the subconscious. The same is true with everything in the world. It doesn't begin with what's happening at the surface. It's always beneath the surface. What's happening on the subconscious level, on a spiritual level, on a heavenly level. And because there was opposition in heaven, therefore there was opposition on earth. What happened? Yutas Kislev. Yutas Kislev said the Rebbe's. The Kitrug in heaven was removed. Automatically, Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, automatically he came out of prison. That's why they celebrated Yutas Kislev every year with so much passion. Of course, it was a Sudas Haidah, a feast of gratitude for the Chagagula of the Balatanya. Chassidim are mechuyev and want to celebrate a nes that happened, nes shenasa Rabbi, a miracle that happens to your Rebbe, and this continues generations afterwards. But here, it wasn't just the personal miracle that he came out of prison. And it wasn't even just the personal miracle that he could continue teaching and continue writing and continue mentoring Klal Yisrael and continue creating all that we have till today as the ultimate Eved Hashem. But rather, they saw it as a Didan Notzach. It was heaven's declaration that Yafutzu Ma'neisecha Chutza. That what Mashiach told the Baal Shem Tov, that Chassidus needs to penetrate the whole world. That the Oir of Chassidus, the Oir of Einoid Mulvadai, the Oir of Achdus Hashem, the Pnimiyus of Torah, the Pnimiyus of a Jew, the Pnimiyus of the world, the quintessence of what real Yiddishkeit is, the Gilui of Ein Sof in the world, pure infinity in the world, now has the license to be able to go out far and wide in the person himself or herself, and ultimately in the whole world. That's the Yom Tov of Yutas Kislev. The Rebbe Rashab called it Rosh Hashanah L'Chassidus, the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus. That's why the Rebbe says here that the Chiddush of Yutas Kislev is Yafutza by Nesecha Chutza. Heaven granted the permission, and it wasn't an easy permission, because whenever you want to reveal something that is the essence of life, the essence of Ein Sof, not so simple. Just like those of you who only in recent years came to understand a little bit the Oir of Chassidus, you know how much resistance there is. There's resistance. Why is there resistance? Resistance because it's new. And it's revolutionary. It's nuclear energy. The Chiddush of Chassidus doesn't change anything in Torah, Chalila, and yet it changes everything. Doesn't change anything in terms of a halacha, shulchan aruch, chas v'shalom. Torah azel leitiyah mechlefes, but it changes everything. Because it doesn't change the reality of halacha, but it changes your eyes, your perspective on everything. Beginning from yourself, to your marriage, to your children, to your relationship with Hashem, to Torah, mitzvahs, minhagim, Shabbos, Yom Tov, halacha, nigla, nister, a Mishnah, a Gemara, a Pasuk Chumash, the world, current events. Every aspect of life is redefined and transformed by Chassidus. The infinity of it is revealed. The harmony of it is revealed. The oneness is revealed. The tainug, the synchronization with the ultimate unity of Ein Sof is revealed. Rebbe Zriel, אתה מסכים? Huh? 2 thumbs up.
How do we know what's going on in heaven?
Reb Shalom the Herst? Du der Herst oder der Herst? Kannst du sagen L'chaim jetzt für Yutas Kislev? You don't have to wait till Motzei Shabbos.
I'm ready.
Okay, it's Wednesday. Wednesday in Shir Shayam we say L'chun Ranana. right? The Gemara says in Pesach, Chaim v'levracha. Again, you made a coffee and you forgot about me. It's becoming a pattern. Next time will be a chazaka. Okay.
I can bring it over daily. You want Starbucks?
No, my wife makes me a wonderful coffee. The main thing is to give us the kaveh al Hashem. The kaveh is the kaveh al Hashem. Why is there resistance? There's resistance for good reason. Because when something so deep and so powerful is going to be revealed in your life, if you're a normal person, you're like, wait. Especially in our world where we're so cynical and defensive and there's so much resistance. So that's why there's a kitrug in us as well. That kitrug begins in heaven. It's a very serious gilui. Matan Torah didn't happen as Shabbos noch in Sholent. The Jews ate Sholent, and Hashem said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. That's not when it happened. It happened after Golus Mitzrayim. So the Balatanya says in Torah Eid, and we learned the whole Maimah of Reb Hillel Paritcher last year in the summer, or 2 years ago in the summer, Tisha B'Av time. Matan Torah can't just happen after a Cholent, after you eat a little vanilla ice cream. Matan Torah happened after Golus Mitzrayim. The Jews were transformed for 210 years. The Matan Torah of Pnimiyus HaTorah, which by the way is Lag BaOmer. Lag BaOmer is the Matan Torah of Pnimiyus HaTorah. Shavuos is the Matan Torah of Nigla Torah, even though Shavuos is everything, because Matan Torah included everything. But in a more revealed way, Lag BaOmer is the Matan Torah of Pnimiyus HaTorah of Shimon ben Yochai. That's why it's such a powerful day, Lag BaOmer, and that's why it unites Klal Yisrael. In Miran, by the cave of Shimon ben Yochai, is probably the greatest kibbutz of Jews, at least till Corona. So what happens here is there is resistance. It's a lo pashut. Comes Yutas Kislev, and that's when there was the license, the permission for your futzah menasech chutza. V'im he'sheinin your futzah menasech chutza mavonai bepashta kipshuta hafatas hamayanos shoteres achsidus. And even though your futzah menasech chutza means the well springs of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov of Chassidus, emes, amna mikivan she Yisrael miskashran be'iraisa, v'ad she Yisrael v'kutcha b'richu, v'ad she Yisrael v'iraisa kol echad, harei muven, shekasher nasa chidush b'bchinas ha-Torah, and nasa chidush d'gmasa b'yis Yisrael gam b'bchinas Yisrael. V'cheinu gam b'inyan shenes chadash b'yutas Kislev. Because, as the Zohar says, the Jewish people are linked with Torah. And Yisrael v'iraisa kul echad. Yisrael and Torah are completely one. So when there's a chiddush in Torah, when there's a novelty in Torah, that chiddush happens at the same time also in the Jewish soul. You can't create a chiddush in the Jewish soul if there's no chiddush in Torah. And there's no chiddush in Torah if there's no chiddush in the neshama. That itself is one of the ideas of Chassidus. Neshamas Yisrael and Torah are tightly linked. They're completely synthesized. Not only synthesized, they're one. So if you say that Yutas Kislev, there was a Chiddush in Torah, there was then a new revelation of Yafutzum and Esech Chutza, heaven's permission, and therefore a new Hisgalus in the world of Torah Sachsidus. And it's not only permission, but it's also known, I spoke about this quite a few times in the Shiurim, that after Yutas Kislev, in Chabad lexicon, there's what's called Far Peterburg or Nach Peterburg, before Petersburg and after Petersburg. Far Peterburg means the Chassidus that Alter Rebbe taught before Yutas Kislev, Nach Peterburg is after Yutas Kislev. And it's known that Nach Peterburg, after Peterburg, there was a whole new revelation. Whenever there's a Chiddush in Torah, the same Chiddush is mirrored in the Neshama of a Jew and the Neshama of Knesset Yisrael. And conversely, if there's a real Chiddush in the Neshama of a Jew, that Chiddush is reflected in Torah also, because the two work together. Whenever you see a revolutionary spirit in the Neshama of a Jew, a Psanu Chiddush, there's a Chiddush happening in Torah. And the same is the other way around. And therefore, it's reflected also in this Chiddush of Yutas Kislev. Mayanas elu shebiyutas Kislev huschala afatzasan chutza. Hey, mayanas the pnimiyus hatayra niknas neshmasa deiraisa. These mayanas, the well springs, that on Yutas Kislev, they began to be spread outward, chutza, all the way to the outermost corners of the human soul and ultimately of our planet. What are they? They're the well springs of what we call pnimiyus HaTorah. The inner core of Torah, the Zohar calls it neshmasa deiraisa. The neshama of Torah, Zohar Chelek Gimel Kuf Nun Beis. I think it's Parshas Baloischa. You see, he says in 18. Just like a person has a body, a guf and a neshama, the Torah has a guf and a neshama. The pasuk says in Chukas Zois HaTorah Adam. Torah is like an Adam. It says in Svarim, Torah is compared to an Adam. An Adam, a person, is comprised of a body and a soul. Soul without a body can't do anything. The body is what concretizes the soul. On the other hand, the body without a soul is missing its vitality and life. So Torah also, this gufa d'oraisa, this is the Zohar says, this is the guf of Torah, the body of Torah, that's the concretization of Torah, the concrete physical manifestation of Torah. This is the whole world of what we call nigla, the revealed dimension of Torah, which means that which is tangible and concrete. You're learning about an ox, and you're learning about a donkey, you're learning about muktzah, you're learning about paying interest, you're learning about a vessel, if it's pure or impure, you're learning about agriculture, you're learning about how to build an Erev, you're learning about what's chametz, what time you have to burn chametz, those of you started to learn Masechta Pesachim, you're learning about partners, civil rights, civil liberties, your ox gores another ox, etc. All of halachas, roya, moyed, nashim, nezik, and kachim taras, whether you're learning Maseches Brachas, or you're learning Masechta Pesachim, or you're learning Erevin, or you're learning Masechta Chulin, or Baba Metzia, or Baba Basra, this is the concrete Torah, Torah Shebiksav, Torah Shebal Peh, that is revealed. What do we mean revealed? Revealed means that it's tangible. It's something I can relate to, just like I can relate to the physical, or just like my body. I can touch my body, I can see my body, I can even get an x-ray of my body. Nishmasa d'oraisa is the inner core of Torah, the pnimiyus of Torah, like the soul. The soul is the inner music of a person, the consciousness of a person. It's not tangible, but it's what makes us tick. It's what makes us alive. And in Torah, the two are completely one. They're synthesized. You don't have guf, just like in a person. You don't have a guf without a neshama. You don't have a neshama without a guf. We can't even say where one stops and one begins. Here the body stops, here the neshama begins. It's completely one. There's complete integration. This is the neshmasa that has the pnimiyus HaTorah, the Baal Shem Tov, and the Maggid, and the Maggid students, revealed and explained and disseminated to the Jewish people until this very day. And on Yutas Kislev, there was the special gilui, the special revelation of these mayanas. Lifnei Yutas Kislev, haya begilui b'hafatza rak chelek HaTorah shenikra gufa deraisa nigla d'Torah. Mashenkin pnimiyus HaTorah shehu nishmasa deraisa shaisas behelam. Before Yutas Kislev, what was revealed and what was spread forth was the part of Torah that we call the gufa d'oraisa, the body of Torah, which is nigla de Torah. And this, of course, includes the whole literature of halacha, Mishnayos, Gemara, Torah Shebiksav, Torah Shebal Peh, Rishonim, Acharonim, halacha, Shal Setshuvas, the whole Chelek of nigla de Torah. Mashenkin pnimiyus HaTorah, the inner core of Torah, what we call nister, or Seidus HaTorah, Pnimiyus HaTorah, Nishmasa d'oraisa, was always there, but it was more concealed. It wasn't articulated so much, it wasn't discussed, it wasn't explained, it wasn't brought out, it was there. And most Jews in previous generations, they sensed it, they felt it. It was by osmosis, it was given over, because it's like the essential core of Judaism, but it was still concealed. You could compare it to the difference between the guf, the body, and the soul. Haguf, he mitzias gluya v'nekeresh efshel l'oiso l'mashasha. Mashenkin aneshama, loizu b'lvad she'efshel l'toifsa b'hei achoshem hagufnem, ela she'efshel la'asiga gam b'koyach ha'seichel hadak. B'koyach ha'seichel lahagia rak li'yidiyas mitziusa shel aneshama. Aydei pu'ulas aneshama b'guf. D'zeh she'haguf chai, mechayev u'meivi li'yidiyas sichlis sheba'guf nimtzas nefesh chaya mechaya isa. Aval muhusa shel nefesh, hi l'mayla me'asaga sichlis. V'achidush diutas kislev, shemiyaz ve'elech gam chelek hanelam v'apnei the Torah nimshechu b'alodei gilui, at shenitin lelamdu la'sigei b'seichel, k'may shemasigim es chelek hanegel the Torah v'afilu lo fitzei chutza. What's the distinction between the guf and the neshama? The body of a person, as I said before, is a revealed entity and it's a recognizable entity. You can see it with your eyes. You can touch it with your hands. You can smell it with your nose. You can, I don't know if you want to taste it, but I guess you can taste it to some degree with your mouth. And you can hear its sensations with your ear. It's nitfus, it's something that I can grasp with my senses. I see it, I touch it, I feel it. It's a very tangible, concrete reality. That's what the guf is. The neshama, what's the neshama? Describe to me the soul. What's the soul? Even in the world of in the world of science, they'll ask them, what's consciousness? What makes a person tick? What's inside of us? What's identity? Who's the I? There's debates from one extreme to another extreme. Why is it so complicated? Even the body is quite complicated. But at least the body, we're all maggid. They're all maggid. It exists because it's hard to deny it. I'm sure not everybody agrees it exists, but at least most. Describe to me the soul. What is the soul? I know I have a soul. There's something inside of me. There's a difference between a living person and a corpse. So someone says it's just electrical signals. It's like a machine. There is that philosophy, kevayachal, that the body is just like a machine. You put on a machine, the lights go on, and it functions. There's nothing else. A machine doesn't have personality. A machine doesn't have an identity. A machine doesn't have an I. And they go so far to argue that our sense of I and identity is just a delusion. It's just how our machine works. Okay, we all know that it's not the case. You could say we're all in a delusion. This machine is so sophisticated. But I think deep down, most people have a sense, there's something called identity, there's something called I, something called consciousness, there's something called a soul. What?
You're very good at explaining things, but there's no one sleeping in the room right now, so I could say, you're very good at explaining. Thank you.
Okay. How?
I'm sorry. Sorry I interrupted you.
How do you describe this neshama? She says the neshama, first of all, there's no way to grasp it with the five senses. Can I touch my soul? Where? How do I touch it? Can I smell it? Can I taste it? I can eat it. My taste buds will detect it. Can I hear the soul with my ears? It's a sound that penetrates my ears. Can I see it with my eyes? So I can't see it. I can't hear it. I can't smell it. I can't touch it. I can't taste it. Number one. What about with my mind? He says, even with my mind, can I grasp my soul? My mind can lead me to the conclusion that a soul exists. Why? Because I see the effects of the soul. But my mind cannot grasp and define what is a neshama. No mind can do that. The mind could reach the conclusion, and the true conclusion, that there is a soul. Because you look at life. This machine we call a body, something is giving it life, and the life is not just a simple mechanism. You're dealing with the most extraordinary, brilliant mechanism. And the soul the body is being animated. The design of the body, the functioning of the body, the animation of the body, every single moment, through the brain, the entire body, there's something here. There's something responsible for it. We call that a neshama. But what is it? I don't know. It's like electricity. Does electricity exist? Yes. Did you ever see electricity? Did you smell electricity? Did you hear electricity? Nobody ever saw electricity. You know why? You can't see electricity. But you could see the effects of electricity. We see it right here, right now. But you can't see electricity. Does electricity exist? Well, you can argue it doesn't exist. But when you see the effects of electricity, you know that it exists. So he says the soul, we know it exists because the life of the body tells us, it tells our minds that there is something that is responsible for the whole animation and vitality, vivifying and giving life to the body in all of its aspects. But what is the mohus? What is the soul? Tell me what it is. I don't know. I don't know. We have some sense that there is something. We know that there is something. What is it? I don't know. My mind can't wrap its brain around it. So there's a huge difference between the body and the soul. This is the difference between nigla and pnimius. Your typhus? Nigla, the Torah, is like the guf. It's Torah, it's halakus, but it's like the guf. So you could see it, so to speak. You can hear it, you can touch it. You could be typhus. Pnimius at the nishma is like the neshama. The five senses, I can't even grasp it. And even with my seichel hadak, I can't define what its essence is. I can reach the conclusion that it exists. In the lashon of the sikh, I could be typhus, it's mitzias, not its mohus. You know the difference between mitzias and mohus? So listen, the word mitzias comes from the word motzoi, existence. The word mohus comes from the word mahu. What is it? Chachem mahu oimer. So the Rebbe Rayat said, Chachem mahu oimer. What you are, you say. Your words express who you are. Chachem mahu, Rasha mahu oimer. Mohus is mahu. The metzias of the nefesh, I could know that it's matzu, it exists. The mohus of it, mahu, what is it? Nobody can describe it. It's too abstract, it's too transcendent. It's not tangible. My mind's antennas can't grasp it and define it. It doesn't lend itself to that definition. There's an element of mystery there. There's an element of transcendence there. So he says, what happens in Torah on Yutas Kislev is something extraordinary. That even the pnimius of Torah, the neshama of Torah, becomes like the guf. It becomes more revealed. We said that the difference of the two parts of Torah is like the guf and the neshama. Now we'll understand the chiddush of Yutas Kislev. That even the neshama of Torah is revealed to the point that you could learn it, you can grasp it through seichel. A person's mind can learn it and grasp it just like he grasps nigla. Of course, I don't fully grasp it. There's always layers upon layers and layers, just like a shtickle Gemara. It's infinite. There's layers upon layers upon, just like a Mishnah, just like a Pasuk Chumash. But the Baal Shem Tov, the Maggid, and then Yutas Kislev, the Baal HaTanya, took these teachings and brought it down in a way that it's much more tangible. Mekanis learning, you could learn it, you can breathe it, you can internalize it, you can grasp it. Of course, everybody according to their level. Furthermore, you can share it. You could spread it out. Chutzah. Chutzah means it can reach places that are very far. והנה חידוש זה שבתורה, גילוי נשמת דרייסה בדוגמאות ועל ידין חדש, אז גם בבחינת ישראל, שהנשמה שבוישה מצד עצמה, היא בהלם כנ"ל, תויר אצלי בגילוי, היינו גם בענייני הגוף שלו. If every chiddush in Torah is mirrored in a chiddush in the Shamas in by Yidden, and every chiddush by Jews is mirrored in a chiddush in Torah, so the chiddush in Torah of Yutas Kislev, Yafutza Maineisecha Chutza, that the neshama could come out, is also reflected by the Jewish people as well. That what? That the neshama of a person, which on its own is inaccessible, it remains intangible, it remains concealed, as we said, should come out and be manifested in a much more revealed way. What do I mean a revealed way? It should exist and live within the body. The body should be able to be a transparent conduit for the soul. It shouldn't remain anymore a state where the soul lives in its world. And the guf is, of course, connected to the soul, but ultimately it's two olamas, two worlds. No. that the neshama becomes begilui, like the guf. In other words, within the guf, which is the part of life that's tangible, one should be able to live with the neshama. And he says in footnote 19, "Ubefrat briyas ha'adam." Lo amal Torah yulat Sanhedrin Sadik Tes. V'meila moving shekshanasa chiddush b'Torah nasa chiddush gam ba'adam. By the Rebbe, everything was a Gemara, or a Gemara or a halacha, because you saw clearly that Nigla and Pnimius are not two separate Torahs. Every Nekuda of Pnimius is expressed in Nigla, and every Nekuda of Nigla is an expression of Pnimius, and the two are completely one. So by the Rebbe, you saw this in an extraordinary way. I don't remember even, I don't know, it was almost never the Rebbe could give a long pilpul in a Rambam, in a Rashi, in a Sugi, in Gemara, Asiya Masechta, and then you always knew. And this whole thing is a reflection of Pnimiyus HaTorah. Or if he spoke about Pnimiyus HaTorah, he would say, and now let's see how it's expressed in Nigla. So right away he says here, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, Adam la amal yulad. A person was born to toil. So there's three opinions there. Amal malacha, amal sich. The conclusion is amal Torah. Toil of work, toil of conversation or prayer, and toil of Torah. The conclusion is a person was created for the toil of Torah. If this is why a person was created, so then when there's a chiddush in Torah, and a person was created for toil and Torah, so this chiddush also becomes a chiddush in the person. What does this mean? What does this mean that on Yotes Kislev there was a new ability, a new potential, a new koyach that Hashem planted into the world and into the Jewish world, that the neshama could come out into the guf? What does it mean? Just like it happens in Torah, Yafutza, my nesecha chutza, the neshama of Torah comes out. That's the chiddush of Chassidus. It happens, it begins in the person. First of all, we learn here a tremendously fundamental idea. There's no listen to what I'm telling you, there's no innovation in an idea if that innovation doesn't happen in the person. That doesn't exist. If the innovation of the chiddush didn't happen in the person, it didn't happen in the idea, because they're one. If it's a superficial chiddush, then it doesn't have to happen in the person. But if it's a real chiddush in Torah, and Neshamas Yisrael are one with Torah, it automatically happened first, or at least simultaneously in the person. Bir hadavar. The explanation is Bizgalusa shel neshama beguf yesh beze fanim klalim. In the relationship of the soul and the body, and the revelation of the soul through the body, there's two different approaches. Aleph, he's got two different states of consciousness, I should say. Aleph is galus on neshama b'midah kazu sheyesh lo shlita al haguf haguf nichnala aval b'kol zeh nirgesh haguf k'metzias la'atzma. Both states of consciousness are very powerful. They're very profound. But it's two states. State number one is the neshama is revealed. The soul is revealed in the guf, to the point that it can rule the guf, and the guf becomes subservient to it. But still, the guf is felt as a separate reality. Beis, shanashama hi bezgalus kol kach b'haguf, at shaguf eine metzias la'atzmei klal amitis inyan gili neshama b'guf. But the authentic relationship between neshama and guf, in a much more profound way, is that the soul is so revealed to the point that the body does not experience itself as a separate entity. It experiences itself as an extension, as a conduit of the neshama. In the first state of consciousness, the body is ruled by the neshama. The body recognizes the soul. It's subservient to the soul. But it has its own autonomous identity, even though it's subservient to the soul. This means the soul is not completely revealed. It's revealed to some degree. There's a relationship. If not, the body wouldn't listen to the neshama, but still the body is separate. We'll explain a little later what this means in more practical ways. On the deeper level, there's oneness. And what do we mean by oneness? The soul is so deeply revealed. It all has to do with how deep, with how powerful is the revelation of the soul. When the soul is revealed less, the body can be separate. When the soul is revealed more, what happens? The body doesn't experience itself as a separate entity. And this is the authentic state of the neshama being revealed in the body. Ubedugma, let's give an example. Lahaguf v'nafshi abahamis v'achiyunis. Harei iyefshel lechalik b'neihem, v'loimer shagufu metzias la'atzmai, v'chiyueser etzoyner shel ha'nefesh rak haydei shlita, rak haydei tzivu yushlita. Elo demeyacher sha'nefesh yichayuser shel haguf, harei yem miyuchad im ha'nefesh betachlis ha'is atzmus v'habitl. Ve'ein zeh sha'nefesh tzricha letzavos al haguf l'shmoyel etzoyner, ki yim shu eiser etzoyner b'derech me'ela v'me'ela. Let's give an example to the second state of consciousness when it comes to the body and the relationship of the body with the nefesh habahamis and the nefesh hachiyunis. We were talking about the neshama, which is the transcendental divine core of the person. But let's talk about the electricity of the body. What's the relationship between the guf, the corpse, and the chiyus of the guf? What's called nefesh hachiyunis in Tanya, nefesh habahamis, the animal consciousness, the biological consciousness, the electrical currents that give life to the body. That chiyus, that energy, that electricity that keeps the body alive and makes sure that all of the 9 systems of the living organism of the human being are functioning, or really any animal, any living organism. What's the relationship? Nobody's going to tell me that, the body really has its own mahalach, but the soul is more powerful, and the soul gives a commandment and rules over the body, and then what happens? The body listens and says, okay, if this is what the boss wants, I'll do what the boss wants. That's not how life works. The guf and the nefesh, hachiyunis, are completely in sync with each other. They're really one, because the soul is the chiyus of the guf. It's not a boss sitting somewhere in the office and sending out commandments. The two are completely united and connected. The body is unified with the soul with the ultimate oneness. Its very core is aligned with the soul. And the ultimate alignment. The soul doesn't have to give commandments to the body to listen to it. It's automatic. Yeah. To give a simple example, I'm teaching now. Yeah. I lift up my hand from time to time, right? What's the process? The process is my brain sends a message and says, you're giving a shiur. I think right now the appropriate thing is to lift up your hand. So the hand says, whoa, excuse me. I am still didn't wake up yet. Ich darf sich abruhen. Chas v'sholem, if that's happening, we know that there's something very wrong. You run to the doctor, you run to the ER. It's not even the hand says, listen, I'm not in the mood, I'm not interested, but you're the boss. You're the boss, I don't have a choice. You're the melech. You could take away everything I have to listen to you. That's not pshat. It's not, there's a guf and there's a nefesh, and the nefesh tells the guf to do something, and then the guf does it. And that's the reason why the atheists could claim that there's no soul. Why can the atheists claim there's no soul? Because the soul and the body are so tight, they're so interconnected. They work in so much, a healthy body works in so much unison and synchronization with the soul to the point that you can't differentiate. They say it's just a machine. Wait, look at a machine, there's a soul and there's a body. The machine is just the physical structure where the electricity flows. The relationship is so deep to the point that they're denying that there's anything outside of a body. Of course, that's not the case. There is a soul. But the soul doesn't have to command the body. The body is not a separate thing. The guf, herzich, I'm just an expression of the nefesh. Why did I pick up my hand? Because a healthy body is an expression of the nefesh. This is a mashal. Al derech zo b'negei lechiyus haneshama b'bnei Yisrael, the atem kruyim adam al shem adam ala elyon. Shegam chayusam hagashmis, hi mea nefesh alikis. Shekol inyonei mitziusei da gufa Yisraeli hu shu klila haneshama. B'chdei shaneshama tochel lekayim letzene shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu malabusha mitzvahs maisiyas. Tfilin sitzes daka v'chuli hu dafka adei avareh hagashmim shel haguf. Harei shemitziusei shel haguf hu letach lezu sheboi val yada pelis haneshama mashlimas tafkida b'olam haza. Just as this is true in the mashal between the body and the biological soul, this will help us understand the second level we discussed, the possible relationship between the guf and the nefesh halikis, and the spiritual divine soul in the person. The chiyus of a neshama by the Jewish people, the Jews are called atem kruyim adam. The Gemara says in Yevamos, Samach Aleph, as he says in 22, you're called Adam. Why Adam? The word Adam comes from the word Adama, earth. But the Shalah says Adam is Adam le'elyon. The word Adam comes from doima. You're a mirror of heaven. You're a mirror kevayachal of Hashem. That's the shalos pshat, what Adam is. What's an Adam? Adam is you're a mirror of infinity. You ever had a better definition of Adam? A mirror of infinity. What's Adam? What's Adam? Adam le'elyon. You're doima le'elyon. You're a mirror of Ein Sof. That's who you are. Atem kriyim Adam. Now that's something special. Atem kriyim Adam. This is a unique thing that even the physical life of the Jew is ultimately rooted in the nefesh halakis. It goes through the nefesh habahamis. It goes through the biological consciousness. It goes through the electrical currents of the body, but it's essentially from the divine soul. So what's the second state of consciousness we're talking about? Not that there's two separate things and one rules the other. That's also a relationship. But rather, that the guf ha-Yisraeli, a guf, it feels that its whole identity is what? A vessel, a facilitator, a conduit for the soul. Because the soul has one mission in life. What does the soul want? The soul wants dveikus. Dveikus, dveikus, dveikus. Mili bashamayim ve'imchalei chavatzti baretz. The soul wants to be one with infinity. The soul wants to be what it really is, a chelek elekami mal mamash. The soul wants to do and fulfill Hashem's will. Hashem's will in everything in life. But there's one issue. So much of Hashem's will you can only fulfill if you have a body. How do you give tzedakah without your hands, without money? How do you give tzedakah without a wallet? How do you put on tefillin without the straps of an animal and without an arm and a head? How do you put on Siches if you don't have a guf? A neshama without a guf can't wear tefillin, can't give tzedakah, can't put on tzitzis, can't light Shabbos candles, can't put on a mezuzah on the door, can't make a bracha on food, can't make kiddush on Shabbos, can't do a favor to somebody else. So therefore the guf, you need the guf. So what's the guf? The guf is the facilitator for Ein Sof. There's no separate things. It's not, there's a neshama that is holy, and there's a guf that's a shtickle tzoya, shtick psoilus, dirty and filthy. Elamai, b'stan erlich yid, you're a good Jew, so the guf is going to listen to the neshama. That's the first level. The guf is going to be ruled by the neshama. The second state is, just like the guf and the nefesh habahamis and the nefesh hachinush, not two separate things. It's not like, my brain says pick up the hand, the body says, okay, I'll listen to you. It's the chatchila one. This is also true in the deeper level of the nefesh halakis, that when the nefesh halakis is more revealed, the person sees the guf as a l'chatchila, not as a separate metzias. There's no dichotomy. They're not split. There's no war between them. What is the guf? What is the identity of the guf? The identity of the guf is a facilitator for the neshama in the physical world. That's what a guf is. As a guf, a mechaya. As a guf darf man kuschen. Zoysei meres. This means shekol tachlis mitziyusay. Shala isha Yisraeli. Eine elelius mishkan lo yizbarach. K'maymer azal ala pasuk basel mikdash v'shachanti b'soicha le'nemer ala b'soicham b'soich kol echad v'echad miYisrael ve'einu mitziyus la'atzma. This means when a person really gets more in touch with their deeper divine soul, they appreciate that the very identity and the very purpose of the human person, of the Jew, is you are a mishkan for Hashem. Who are you? You are the conduit for infinity. That's what you are. Who are you? You're a mishkan. You're the place where the Ein Sof dwells. That's who I am. Infinity shines through me. That's what the Chazal say on the pasuk. Vasili mikdash v'shachanti b'soicham. It should have said v'shachanti b'soichoi. I will dwell in it. Why did it say b'soicham? So Chazal say, I will dwell among them. Every heart is a little Beis HaMikdash, or a big Beis HaMikdash. Every soul is a Mishkan. I will dwell in you, b'soicham, b'soichal echad v'echad misnal, in Yiddish hearts, in your heart, in your mind, in your behavior, in your body. Who, veidu mitzias la'atzmai. There's no conflict. Stop with the conflict. There's no opposition. Not God is in heaven and you're on earth. The soul is for Shabbos and Yom Kippur by Ne'ilah, and the guf is for cholent and barbecues. Elamai, I don't have a choice. God is the boss. I want Gan Eden. I want Elam Haba. I want Schar. I want to do the right thing. I realize that it's true, so therefore I do the right thing. No. It's also, we're not mevatel anything. We're not mevatel somebody whose guf listens to the neshama. Keeps you out of trouble, keeps you away from addiction, keeps you away from nasty things, keeps you away from morality. You don't break the law. It's good. We're not mevatel anything. This is nekoit hai klala biyadcha. Here's a klal in parentheses. Maybe it belongs for the fabrengen, but we'll put it in here. And that is, whenever I'm being mevatel something, it's because I'm not fully in touch with the deeper place. When you're fully in touch with the deeper place, there's always an element of tainug. You're not mevatel other things. In other words, when I need to be mevatel somebody or something else, it's because there's a little bit of a threat. And because there's a little bit of a threat, I have to bury you. When there's real wholesomeness, I don't have to judge. I don't have to put down other things and other people. So, it's not there's a dichotomy. There's a neshama in one place and there's a guf in another place. There's the recognition of the Jew. When you really sense the neshama, you understand that your whole reality, your guf and your neshama together are a Beis HaMikdash. The neshama is the spiritual dimension, and the guf is what brings it down into the real world. I want to put on tefillin. I need a guf. I want to give tzedakah. I want to feed a poor man. I need to get food, and I need to cook it in my pot, and I need to taste it with my mouth to make sure there's not too much salt, as we'll soon see, and I have to give it to the poor person. Hu rak b'bchinas isha ksheira lakadosh baruch hu, u'ba'ofen de mashakansa isha kana baila. Wow. The Rebbe says, you want to understand what this is? This is a good marriage. What's a good marriage? Gewaldige Moshel. What's a good marriage? There's two types of marriages. One marriage is, the husband says or the wife says, listen, I don't have a choice. I want shalom bayis, so I'll do what he says. I'll do what she says. Okay, and you go, you do it. Nish gefährlich. We're not mevatel it. It's good. Do what she says. Take out the garbage. Yeah. Go to Evergreen. Yeah. You need to get the wine. Yes. Go to the airport. Yes. It's beautiful. It's amazing. But there's something called Ishik Sheda, Oiser Tzayin Baila. What's Prat Ishik Sheda Oiser Tzayin Baila? He says in 27, Ki Yadua Shakadosh Baruch Hu Knas Tzolhem B'dugmas Ish V'Isha V'Shir HaShirim Yusdal Zak Yidum Midrash Chazal. The whole Shir HaShirim is based on the fact that we're in a marriage with Hashem. Ishik Sheda Oiser Tzayin Baila, he says it's not pshat that she agrees to do what her husband wants or he agrees to do what she wants. The pshat is that they really become one. Now, we're talking here a real powerful marriage. This has to be worked on. Becomes one. What does it mean it becomes one? Becomes one doesn't mean that they're the same person. There's a husband, there's a wife. But it means there's a point, it's not a conflict anymore. There is full trust. There's full synchronization. Of course, I want to do your will. I feel my oneness with you. There's absolute belonging and loyalty and trust. It's the p'chin of matzasas levavei na'am lefanacha. The Gemara says in Gittin, "Mashakanse isha kana baila." What a woman acquires, her husband acquires. This is a mashal for Hashem and the Jewish people. You have sometimes a woman says, you know what? I acquired this, but my husband really wants to have partnership in this, so I'm going to submit it to him. That's not the vart. Mashakan Sisha Kana Baila is not a decision. It's Bederech Mamela Kana Baila, because halacha sees them as one. Now, of course, if he's abusive, this is gonna be dysfunctional. If he's abusive, she's not gonna allow what she's kind of, it should go to him. We're talking, the halacha is describing the ideal relationship where there's absolute trust and transparency and oneness. So Mashakan Isha Kana Baila is not a decision. She says, I want shalom bayis, I'm going to give it over to him. It's automatic. It's in the hergish of the marriage. Halacha is describing that type of relationship. I know there are exceptions, and I know there are distortions. I know that people take advantage of it. We're not talking about that and how halacha deals with that. We're talking in a good, healthy situation. It becomes his. Why? Because they're married, because they're one. It's like an example. I pick something up with my right hand, and then my left hand says, can I have it? No. It's for the right hand. It's not for the left hand. It's a litzonis, right? It's the right hand. It's not the left hand. If it belongs to the right hand, it belongs to the left hand. I pick something up, and I want to eat it. No, it's not for the mouth. It's only for the hand. You joking? It's one. There's a goof. It's one. You understand? That's pshat mashakon shekana bailam. People who don't understand halacha, they're like, feminism, women's rights. You don't get it. They don't get it. Mashakon shekana bailam is not an abuse of women's rights. On the contrary, it's the ultimate women's rights and men's rights. It's the ability for them to work together, for them to be one, for the woman to feel that her husband is really nurturing her to the point that she wants everything to be part of him, just like he wants everything to be part of her. There is the financial structure in halacha. Halacha believes that women should not be occupied with money and shouldn't be stressed out about money and shouldn't have to deal with finances, so they can completely be focused on the energy and the ambiance in the home. Okay, so you have to figure out how that structure works in your life and what it works. But the concept of it is not to take away money from the wife. The concept is that the wife should be able to feel that we're completely one. You typhus? It's a concept of trust. The ksuva says that I have to give it to him, so I'll give it to him. Okay, that's not the vart. Kana baila automatically, because we're not living in separate worlds. Now, I know not everybody has that marriage. I know that. It takes a lot of work. You heard the Sunday night marriage Lakewood thing. So given Lebedik, 3 hours. Almost 3 hours. 2 hours. Whatever it was, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. It's not so simple. You have to work on this. A Jew is Hashem's wife. Who are you? How does a wife feel? Does a wife feel, I don't know if I'm interested in you. But at some point, I want shalom bayis. I don't want to get divorced. So I'll stay with you. This is what you want, I'll do it. That's not the vart. Yes, it's good for a husband to listen to a wife and for a wife to listen to a husband. It's very good. But there's a much deeper consciousness. Deeper consciousness is belonging, loyalty, oneness. You have to work on it. If you're angry, it's not going to happen. If you're resentful, it's not going to happen. If you're traumatized, it's not going to happen. There really has to be a cultivation of trust on both levels. And the same is true spiritually, Hashem and the Jew. But that's the real pshat. Ishak sheira oiser etzayin baila. It's not oiser etzayin baila because I want shalom bayis, so I'll let him be the boss. Oiser etzayin baila because she's aligned with Ritzayin baila. And why is she aligned with Ritzayin baila? Because Ritzayin baila is aligned with her. It's not, he lives on one planet, he shoots forth commandments. Oh gosh, kaddish. She's aligned with his will because his will is aligned with her. And what is this in the Nimshal? That the Guf and the Neshama are not two separate realities. The husband and the wife are aligned with each other. We'll do this paragraph. V'gam oisim shlo yigiu adayin liz b'dargas isha k'sheira l'kadosh baruch hu. Hareim al kol panim b'chinas eved l'kadosh baruch hu. Derei avedus eved hireishis aved ikra v'sharsha. V'arei gam be'eved halachi mashakana eved kana rabbi. Lo yirakshuu atzmei nemorid ba'adayne. V'gam lo yishu maskim l'snag b'rechusha shel eved kiratzen aden. Ayafilu lahamed nechasa b'reshus rabbi. Kim shel melchatchile na nechasam shayachim l'kim l'adayne. And even a Jew who says, listen, I'm not an Ishak Shade. I'm not going to say that I'm Hashem's wonderful spouse. But every Jew, im kibanim, im kavadim, every Jew is an Eved. What's the halacha by Eved? The Gemara says in Psachim and Kiddushin, and the Rashba explains it. Rashba in Kiddushin Chav Gimel, as he says in footnote 30, Mashakana Eved kana Rabbi. What an Eved, what a servant acquires, automatically is acquired by the master. What's Pshat in the Gemara? Not pshat that an Eved doesn't rebel against his master. It doesn't only mean that he agrees to use the assets or the money that he acquires based on the will of the master. It doesn't even mean that he's ready to give it away to the master. Three things. It doesn't only mean that he's not rebellious. It doesn't only mean that he's ready to do with these assets and money what the master wants. It doesn't even mean that he's ready to give it up. That's not what it means. Mashakana Evet Kana Rabbi means Melechatchila. There's no Evet. There's only a rabbi. What the Evet acquires automatically goes to the rabbi. What does this mean in Pnimiyus? What's pshat being an Evet of Hashem? It's even if you're not an Isha, there's marriage, there's an Evet. What's pshat a real Evet? Again, don't confuse this with slavery in the South. We're talking here an Evet of Hashem. In other words, your true core, your true essence. You're an Evet to your real Pnimiyus, right? So what is an Evet in halacha? What the Evet acquires, halachically, doesn't go into his bank account, and then the boss could come into your bank account and take the money. That's not pshat. Mashekana Evet, lechatchila kana rabbi. Yad Evet ke yad rabbi. It's like I'm an extension of his hand. What I was kind of is already is, because there is so much kinship, there's so much connection. You see this in halacha by a kohen with truma. If a Yisrael eats truma, what's the penalty? Very, very serious. A Yisrael to eat truma is misa b'dei shamayim. Unless you do tshuva. It's such a serious desecration of holiness, because truma is holy food, and if a Yisrael eats it, it's a tremendous desecration of holiness to the point that he cuts himself off from his source of life. Now listen to this. A kohen acquired a servant who's not Jewish. He's an Evet Knaini. He became semi-Jewish. He can eat truma. Moshe Rabbeinu, the holiest Jew in the world, if he's not a kohen, machlekes if Moshe was a kohen, but a holiest Jew in the world, if he's not a kohen, eats truma misa b'dei shamayim. An Evet Knaini, he's not a Jew. Yesterday he was not Jewish. He just came in, and he's still not mechuyev in all the mitzvahs. He can eat truma. Why? Why? Strong question. No, what's the answer? The answer is, he's not eating the truma. The kohen is eating the truma. He's a kinyan of the kohen. He's an extension of the kohen. Just like ishtei kegufoi, there's a certain element that the evet kinyan kaspa, it's a part of the kohen. He's not eating it as a separate person. He's eating it because he's the kohen could eat it, and he's part of the kohen. We say in the morning, Nechal HaKoyanim v'leneshayim v'livneyim ule'avdeyim. You remember that piece of davening? So there's an Isha, there's an Evet, but the similarity is that the guf is not a separate mitzias surrendering itself. That's the first state. A much deeper and more authentic state when you feel more of the neshama. Or in the mashal, when you feel more of the presence of your husband and the love of your husband and the loyalty of your husband and the connection to your husband, what happens in the marriage? The Isha now doesn't have to surrender. What do they call it? The surrendered wife? I don't mean to mix in that concept. It's not for now. I don't have to surrender to your reality. And we're not talking here about surrender in terms of abuse. We're not talking about that. Then there's no marriage. We're talking there's a marriage. There's a normal marriage. People are fine. They're functional. One level is, this is what he wants. This is what she wants. For shalom bayis, I'm going to do it. And we all have those moments. And you know what? It's fine. It's wonderful. There's still a loyalty and a dedication. This is the right thing. But when the wife and the husband feels the connection, the loyalty, the love, the trust, the belonging, the commitment, the dedication, the honesty, the authenticity, what happens now? When the neshama is revealed, really, the guf realizes this is who I am. I'm not fighting myself. We're lechatchila one. I'm a facilitator for my soul. I'm a Beis HaMikdash for the Ein Sof. That's who I am. For this, you have to have the Gilui HaNeshama. It's not a challenge in the guf. It's a challenge in the neshama has to come out, because if you don't feel the presence of infinity, the guf can't be transformed. This is Nekayt Haiklala B'Yadcha. There are those who try to transform the guf without introducing it to infinity. You can't. You can't. It's like telling a wife, become one with your husband, your whole identity, and his identity become one without her feeling her husband's commitment. Can that happen? It's terribly abusive and traumatic. It has to start, the neshama has to be his galus, and then the guf could say, okay, this does the shine. This I'm ready to be mevatel myself to. It's also true with a real chassid and a real rebbe. People say the chassid has to dedicate himself to the rebbe. It starts with the rebbe, not with the chassid. It starts with the rebbe, not with the chassid. If the chassid feels that this rebbe is a conduit for Ein Sof, without ego, without agendas, Kol Mus Ein Sof, of course I'm part of this. People say, you're not a chassid. No. The rebbe has to be a rebbe for me to be a chassid. People don't talk about this, but this is the emes. Ata tofes? Divrei Elokim Chayim. Divrei Elokim Chayim. That's what he says in Beis, Gevaldik. He said, "Shanashama he bis galus kol kach b'haguf at shaguf ena metzias la'atzmai." It starts with the neshama. When the neshama is b'his galus, then the guf can sich verlieren. Then the guf could lose its metzias. When the neshama is not b'his galus, the guf says, "All I have is me." What? It's like a woman who says, "What do you mean I should become one with him? All I have is me. I got to protect myself." Only when der Herr, the Sichos, the truth of Einoid Mulvadoi, can there be this type of bittul, this type of achdus. So here we have two states of how the neshama is revealed in the body. And this is the beginning of the explanation, what yafutzu my nesecha chutz is, just like in Torah. The neshama of Torah comes out on Yutas Kislev. Yutas Kislev, the neshama of a Jew, comes out in a revealed way in the guf, to the point that there is oneness. As we will continue to elaborate and explain and apply to our lives in the continuation of the Siches, which we will continue Be'ezer Hashem Thursday morning, 7:30 a.m. See you there. Have a wonderful, beautiful, inspiring, and unified day. Let's take some questions. Okay. First question on the chat. To be mevater is to deal peacefully with a husband. But it's still being mevater. Everything you're saying, I say, yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. It's a goal. Yes, it's a goal, but it's a goal that if two mature people are ready to work on themselves, these are goals that we can achieve. I wouldn't look at it as just an impossible goal. I mean, unless it's a difficult situation, I would look at it as a goal that we can achieve. Let me go to the next questions, to the other questions on the yeshiva.net. Okay, number one, the Maggid gave his last Torah about Yaakov sending malachim, or aspects of the malachim to Esav, while the neshama stayed with him. The Maggid was well aware that he was soon to pass away. Was he teaching something about sending or returning his own neshama back on high? The neshama comes down on a shlichus and returns as a return shlichus. And perhaps even as his neshama came down here, it never really left. That's beautiful. We know that a certain aspect of the neshama remains near the body in the grave. Perhaps the Maggid was teaching. Just like there are parts of malachim that remain with Esav, aspects of the neshama would be remaining here below. And this was a comfort to his disciples. I'm going on high, but my writings remain with you. In other words, there's going to be a part of me that remains with you even after I pass away. Beautiful. Next comment or question. The way I understand it is that Chassidus is the nuclear energy of Torah. Like nuclear energy exists, but did it transform our physical world? Einstein, it said, it merely revealed nuclear energy, which was there all along, but it had to be revealed. Chassidus was always there, but it had to be revealed. It's like nuclear energy, to be able to split the atom. It turns out that the timely revelation of nuclear energy and its practical application with the nuclear or atomic bomb helped end the war, the Second World War in 1945, just in time. They just took out the top nuclear scientist in Iran last week. Just imagine, had they taken out our Einstein before he was able to bring his science to the practical application of the bomb. Can we say that the Tanya was the atomic bomb of Chassidus, in a positive sense. And further, can we say that the atomic bomb of Tanya and its fallout with Chassidus down to our time also came just in time to win the war against the opposing forces of the widespread watering down of Yiddishkeit, mass assimilation, terrible persecutions and Holocaust that came at the heels of the Tanya in the 1800s down to today. In Tanya and subsequent Chassidus, the atomic energy used by 5,000 plus Chabad houses and all Jews who learn Chassidus today in the world are the military regiments and outposts around the world. Do you think this is an accurate description? Very geschmack. Very, very geschmack. Good stuff. Okay, next question. Relatively speaking, perhaps we can say, our mind and our body is just about as dense as the refrigerator is compared to the electricity that animates it. Just as the fridge is incapable of understanding much, let alone understanding of electricity that flows into it and vivifies it, our minds and bodies cannot understand the neshamas vivifying our own bodies, less maybe than the refrigerator understands electricity. It's a true example, but we of course know that the brain is part of the body, and the brain is actually designed to be able to appreciate the meaning of life and the fact that there's electricity. So in that sense, we have a brain that is designed in order to be able to have awareness of certain aspects of reality beyond the refrigerator. You say that the body and soul can be united. How then can a person harm himself to the point that suicide is possible? Is it just that the body is sick? Is it that the neshama where is the neshama's veto of such an extreme existential act? Does the body desire to overpower the neshama's desire in such a case? Excellent question. I would say that the pain is so deep, so deep, that the person feels that they don't want to live. In other words, that aspect that gives life meaning is somehow overshadowed by the darkness of a person's anxiety and anguish and existential pain. So therefore, even though the body is a facilitator for the nefesh achiyunis, for life, and a natural body wants to live, but something in the soul and the brain is so distorted that the person's pain says it's better to forfeit life. Just expresses extreme pain. You say that the wife is supposed to be liberated from financial stress so she could focus on other matters. Maybe it's like Shabbos. It doesn't restrict us from certain activities, but it liberates us to focus on other matters. Is Shabbos slavery or is Shabbos liberation? On Shabbos I can't drive my car or make a fire or cook, but that's a liberating day because it lets me focus on family and love and God and soul. So when the Torah says that the woman, she is supported by her husband, and what she acquires goes to her husband, it's not a way of restricting her. It's a way of liberating her from financial stress. This is an excellent, excellent description. What happens when you don't agree with your master? You're hurt, and you don't understand what's happening. Well, that's why I said depends who your master is. This can only happen if you realize that your master and you are one, that your master loves you infinitely, that you are an extension, because Einoid Mulvada, you're right, it can't happen with a slave and a master, you're right. That's why we're using this as a mashal. With a slave and a master, yeah? Unless you have Eliezer and Avram Avinu. Eliezer willingly, completely surrendered to Avram. Why? Because he felt that Avram was the tzaddik hador. It's a whole different concept. Does my hand surrender to my brain? Yeah, you know why? Because it trusts my brain, because it knows that it is my brain. It's an extension of my brain. Through the central nervous system, the brain unifies the entire organism. So it's not an act of abuse or even a surrender. It's an act of oneness. So you're right. If the master is one that takes advantage of the slave, and the slave cannot appreciate the master and disagrees with him, then at best you'll have the first level. But when somebody appreciates the infinity of Ein Sof and the Nimshal, then it's a different level. That's why this second level requires the revelation of Ein Sof. Just like in a marriage, this can only happen when the wife feels the full presence of the husband, and conversely. It works both ways. Great questions. Next question. How do I know if I as a husband am making a proper keli for us as a couple to become one? Ooh, good question. How do I know? I think the most important tool here is communication. Communication of inner feelings, right? The therapists are maskim. I think communication of inner feelings. In other words, for you to communicate as often as possible how you're processing things, how she's processing things, and fix the distortions. Is she getting an impression of being used or not trusted or not feeling complete trust in you, or the other way around? And there's that communication. We repair the broken parts until there could be complete fusion. Beautiful question. You speak about good and great health, emotionally, spiritually, socially, in marriage, wholesomeness. May we all continue to get healthier and healthier and affect others to become healthier, especially those of us who are ambassadors in training or junior ambassadors. I wish you all, let me see if there's another question. I wish you all a meaningful and a beautiful day. We'll see you tomorrow, Be'ezer Hashem, at 7:30. And welcome Rabbi Adan. And Mazel Tov for the big simcha. A lot of nachas. And welcome to everybody from all over the world. I see people. Welcome Rabbi Mordechai. We haven't seen you in a while. Welcome the Schlesingers from Eretz Yisrael. It's an honor to have you. And welcome everybody else. And have a beautiful day. Hatzlocha Rabbi.